I want you to just consider for a moment that there are two ways to approach any challenge or opportunity. Often in change management, the significant shift is doing the wrong things well and a willingness to shift to doing the right things poorly in order to get to where we do the right things well. And the reason why we continue to do the wrong things well is because we've become so proficient and good at executing that we pride ourselves on our perfect execution. We don't want to lose that. In order to start doing the right things well, we have to go through this phase of doing the right things poorly, and that sometimes is unacceptable. We just don't want to go there. Now, the reason we don't want to go there is because we have a particular need to continue to be operating, convince ourselves, and show the world that we can do the right things well. So sometimes we resist that change. So anytime we're looking at change is a great example. We can approach change from these two different ways. One is what we call an outward mindset, which is where we focus on the mission and the objective of our organization, of our team, of our group. The other is what we call an inward mindset, which is where we are primarily focused on self. I'm focused on my things, my headaches, my issues, constraints, how everything affects me. We'll sometimes refer to this as being in the box. You see, when I'm in the box, I don't see anybody else. I only see my stuff. I see my worries, my concerns, and I grade everything against my stuff. When I'm outward, I'm focused on the mission and objective of the team and the organization. Because of that, I see the people around me, because they too are supposedly focused on that, and I certainly want to take them into account in the way I go about doing my things. So at a very basic level, inward mindset is focused on self, outward mindset is focused on the organization, the team, the group. Now, deeper dive into each of these. From an inward mindset, others don't matter like I matter. Sounds pretty basic. And I realize I don't think any of us would say, yeah, that's basically my management style. If somebody were to ask you, how have you achieved your success? I don't think any of us would say, well, I kind of start with the idea that others don't matter like I matter, and then I kind of go from there. It just kind of works out. Okay? I hope not. Maybe somebody would. So others don't matter like I matter. Okay? Now, because of that, all of my behaviors and my objectives are self-focused. I only take myself into account as I try to achieve things. Because of that, while others have needs, objectives, and challenges that I work with, I don't see them. I don't care about them. They're not important to me. The only time that I really even think about other individuals from an inward mindset is when they can help me or hurt me with my stuff. So when my mindset is inward, I'm focused on my objectives, my behaviors. The only time I think about other people is when they can help me or hurt me with my stuff. In fact, I sometimes will go through my organizational life, and home life for that matter, with a ledger in the back of my mind. Everybody falls into one of two categories. Those that help me and make my life easier, and those that make my life more difficult. It's the only way that I see them, if I'm being honest with myself. I just wonder if we have a kind of an accompanying ledger of those whose lives we make easier and those whose lives we make more difficult. From an inward mindset, I see people as objects. I don't see them as people. They're things to be dealt with. They can either help me or hurt me. Or if they're none of the above, I don't really think too much about them. And so sometimes we define it this way. When they're objects, they might be vehicles that I use. Now, I've owned a couple businesses, a couple software businesses that I've sold off. They weren't huge, but I got to where around 30, 35 or so employees. I like to think that I was outward, but the reality, the fact is, I saw every single individual that worked for me as a vehicle. Oh, sure, I took good care of my vehicles. We made sure we had wonderful parties, a lot of happiness, and all kinds of good stuff. But did I really understand what their headaches, issues, constraints, the challenges they're facing as they're trying to get their day done, the things that are having an impact on how they go about doing their job? No, but I sure made sure they all knew that they needed to be understanding of what mine were. I owned the company. So this isn't about getting along with other people. This isn't even about nice. This is about seeing clearly, seeing things as they really are. So when I see people as objects, I might see them as vehicles that I use, obstacles that I blame, or irrelevancies that I ignore. Vehicles that I use, these could be patients. Do we see the individual that's coming into our office as an individual to help us grow our business? Are we more focused on our solutions or their problems? Do we really understand the pressures, the worries, the concerns that they're experiencing? Or do we see any of those things coming out of their mouth as annoyances that I wish they'd stop talking about so we could get on and do the work? If we want to focus on retention of patients and increasing customer satisfaction and patient happiness, we start seeing them. The scary thing about this, when we're inward toward other individuals, we're constantly communicating this. Our mindset is constantly being communicated. Think about it for a moment. Have you ever been on the other side of an individual that's saying all the right things to you, smiling, saying nice things, and yet you know exactly how they feel about you? They want you to change. They want you to just fix yourself so that you'll make their lives easier. You feel the contempt. You feel kind of the demeaning way that they see you. Doesn't matter what they're saying. You know exactly the way that they see you, and it's communicated more loudly than anything else. Let's say for a moment that I'm going into some sort of a project, or I'm going into I've just hired on a new member of my staff, hygienist, assistant, some sort, office manager. They come into my office and we start off. Imagine if I started the relationship the following way. Good to have you part of the team. Let's dive in and get into a little bit of an orientation. Before we begin things, I want to make sure that you see that I understand that I see you as a vehicle here to enrich me and make me successful. And you're a tool for me to utilize. Anyway, let's go ahead and dive in, and here's the orientation. How well would that relationship go? Every conversation I have with that individual afterward, wouldn't it be filtered through that understanding? Oh, sure, at a certain point, there's a paycheck involved. They'll comply. They'll do certain things. What if we're already doing that? What if we're already communicating that on a constant basis with the people around us? It's a scary thought when you begin to pause and consider how quickly we are to notice other people's mindset toward us and how ignorant we are of how loudly ours is being communicated to others. We'll never see our own provocations, but we'll certainly see their reaction to our provocations. We'll see resistance. We'll see conflict. We'll see them maybe pushing back or talking behind our back to other associates or other individuals in the office. We'll see those things. But because we're in the box, we're failing to see our own provocation, and that it's all coming from the initial communication that we had and the ongoing communication that we continue to have. And so, of course, when things break down and we run into quote-unquote people problems, we usually say it's their fault. In fact, we've got a long list of evidences that confirm that to us. We've just completely failed to take into account our role in it. When we get frustrated toward people that we work with, we have a list of reasons. And you know what? Those lists, those things might actually be true. We're not suggesting that your list is incorrect. We're just suggesting it's incomplete. We're only seeing them in a certain way, and we're communicating that to them constantly.